Okay, guys, I have to tell you about last night because it's been stuck in my head like a song I can't stop humming. And I'm still trying to make sense of it. I'm Emma, 20 years old, a college sophomore juggling classes, a barista job, and life in a tiny apartment. I ran into my neighbor Ethan late last night, standing by his truck with that calm smile that always makes my heart do this weird flip. He's married, totally off limits, and when he offered me a ride home, I could have said no. I didn't. The drive should have been quick, but he took the long way, and the way we talked, the way the air felt, it turned into something more. My heart's still racing, and I need to spill every detail. Stick with me, and please like and subscribe for more stories like this. The night was biting cold, the October air sharp against my skin as I stepped out of Brewed Awakening, the coffee shop where I worked part-time. It was 10:45 p.m., my shift finally over, and I was bone tired. My apron stuffed into my backpack, its straps digging into my shoulders. My dark hair spilled loose over my denim jacket, freed from its usual ponytail after hours of steaming milk and wiping down counters. The street was quiet, the neon sign above the cafe flickering, casting a soft, uneven glow over the empty sidewalk. My sneakers scuffed against the pavement as I adjusted my backpack, bracing for the 20-minute walk to my apartment building. A 4-story brick walk-up with peeling paint and an elevator that groaned like it was auditioning for a horror movie. I was used to the trek, but tonight, with the wind stinging my fingers and my legs aching from standing all day, it felt like a marathon I wasn't ready to run. That's when I saw him, Ethan Carter, my neighbor from apartment 3B, leaning against his blue pickup truck parked across the street, his hands tucked into the pockets of a navy jacket, his dark blonde hair catching the streetlight's glow. He was probably in his early 30s with hazel eyes that seemed to see more than they should, and a calm smile that made my stomach flutter in a way I couldn't quite explain. He was married to Claire, a lawyer who was always rushing off in tailored blazers, her blonde bob sleek and her eyes focused on her next case, like she was already arguing it in her head. Ethan was different, warm, easygoing, with a quiet charm that lingered in our hallway chats about the best pizza spots, the creaky elevator, or the upstairs neighbor's midnight vacuuming habit. Not that I was noticing. He was married, and I was just the college kid next door, juggling psychology classes, a barista job, and rent for a 500 square foot apartment I was still trying to make my own with string lights and a pair of wilting succulents. He spotted me and raised a hand, his smile widening, the kind of smile that felt like it was just for me. "Emma, you heading home?" I nodded, crossing the street, my heart giving a little jump as I approached, my sneakers crunching on a few scattered leaves. "Yeah, just finished my shift." "What are you doing out here so late?" He shrugged, his hands still in his pockets, the streetlight casting soft shadows across his face, highlighting the faint stubble on his jaw. "Dropped off some designs for a client nearby. Saw the cafe light on and figured I'd wait." "Want a ride home?" "It's freezing out here." I hesitated, my breath visible in the cold air, my fingers tightening on my backpack straps as the wind tugged at my hair. I could have said no, could have stuck to my usual walk, kept things simple and safe, but the warmth of his truck, the thought of not trudging through the biting wind, and that smile, steady, inviting, like he genuinely wanted to help, made it hard to turn away. Claire's name flashed in my mind, a sharp reminder of the line I shouldn't cross, but my feet were already moving closer. "You sure?" I asked, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear, my voice betraying a hint of nerves. "I don't want to put you out." He shook his head, opening the passenger door of his truck. A beat-up blue pickup with a few scratches on the side and a faint dent near the wheel. "No trouble at all." "Come on, I'm not letting you walk in this cold." I smiled, my cheeks warming despite the chill, and climbed into the truck. The leather seat cooled against my legs through my faded jeans. He slid into the driver's seat, the door creaking as he closed it, and started the engine, the rumble low and steady, vibrating through the cab. The interior smelled faintly of pine air freshener and coffee, with a stack of design sketches tucked into the center console, their edges curling, and a half-empty water bottle rolling by my feet. A few pens and a notepad were stuffed in the cue folder, and the dashboard had a thin layer of dust, like the truck was more a workhorse than a showpiece. I set my backpack on the floor, smoothing my jacket, suddenly hyper-aware of my casual look jeans, a worn t-shirt under my jacket, no makeup, my freckles stark against my pale skin, my hair, but Ethan didn't seem to care, his movements easy as he adjusted the heater, warm air spilling into the cab, chasing away the chill. "Thanks," I said, settling back, the warmth easing the tension in my shoulders, my fingers thawing against the vents. "This is way better than walking." He chuckled, pulling onto the street, his eyes flicking to me briefly before returning to the road. "Anytime. You work too hard to be hiking home in this weather." The truck rolled through the quiet streets, the city lights blurring past, a mix of neon signs from diners and street lamps casting fleeting glows across the dashboard. I expected him to take the direct route, a 10-minute drive straight to our building, but he turned onto a side street, one that led away from the main road, winding through quieter neighborhoods with tree-lined sidewalks, old brick houses, and porches adorned with pumpkins for Halloween. My heart gave a little jump, a mix of surprise and something else, something warmer, as I realized he was taking the long way. I didn't say anything. The hum of the engine and the warmth of the cab wrapping us in a cocoon of quiet, the city outside feeling distant, like we were the only two people awake. "So," he said, his voice low, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift, his fingers tapping lightly. "How's the barista life? You make the best coffee in town, or what?" I laughed, rolling my eyes, grateful for the light tone to ease the flutter in my stomach. "I'm decent, but it's more about keeping the espresso machine from exploding. Customers get cranky if their lattes late." "What about you? Delivering designs at this hour?" He grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners, the streetlight catching the hazel in them as he glanced at me. "Client's a night owl. Wanted a last-minute proof for a logo before tomorrow. Freelance life, never really off the clock." I nodded, sensing a hint of exhaustion behind his words, the kind that came from long hours and tight deadlines, the kind I knew from balancing classes and work. "Sounds intense. Do you ever get a break?" He chuckled, taking another turn, the truck moving slowly past a park. Its swings still in the moonlight, the slides glinting faintly. "Not often. Music helps, though. Keeps me sane." "What about you? How do you unwind after a shift?" I raised an eyebrow, leaning forward slightly, the seat creaking under me. "Let me guess, classic rock? Springsteen?" His eyes widened and he laughed, a warm, genuine sound that filled the cab, glancing at me with a mix of surprise and admiration. "You're good." "Yeah, Springsteen's my guy. Thunder Road's the one that gets me." I smiled, settling back, the warmth of the cab making me bold, the heaters hum a soft backdrop. "My dad's obsessed. Grew up hearing Born to Run on repeat. Thunder Road's got that let's get out of here vibe, like you're one guitar riff away from driving off into the sunset." He nodded, his gaze softening, the truck slowing as we hit a quiet stretch of road lined with old oaks, their leaves rustling in the wind. "Exactly. That feeling of just driving, no destination, just you and the open road. You get it." He paused, his eyes flicking to me, a spark of connection in his gaze. "What's your escape? Besides making coffee for cranky customers?" I laughed, tucking my hair behind my ear, the motion automatic, as I tried to ignore the way my heart raced under his gaze. "Old rom-coms, mostly. When Harry Met Sally is my go-to. Probably watched it a dozen times, maybe more. There's something about those messy, hopeful love stories that just works." He raised an eyebrow, his smile turning playful, leaning slightly toward me, his arm resting on the back of the seat. Rom-coms? Didn't peg you for a hopeless romantic. I rolled my eyes, my cheeks warming under his teasing gaze, the cab feeling smaller, warmer. Not hopeless, just hopeful. There's a difference, you know. He grinned, his eyes locked on mine for a moment before flicking back to the road, the streetlight casting shadows across his face. Noted. You're full of surprises, Emma. The air between us thickened, the hum of the engine and the soft crackle of the radio filling the silence, a faint static underscoring the moment. Our eyes met again, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet, heavy, with something unspoken. A pull I knew I shouldn't feel but couldn't ignore. Claire's name echoed in my mind, a sharp reminder of the line we were skirting, but the warmth of his smile, the way his eyes lingered on my freckles, my messy hair, made it hard to care. I reached for the radio, needing a distraction, my fingers brushing his as he reached for it at the same time. The touch was brief, but it sent a spark through me, like static electricity, and I pulled back, laughing nervously to cover the flush creeping up my neck. Mind if I pick the music? I asked, my voice light but my heart racing, my fingers hovering over the radio. Go for it, he said, his voice low, his eyes flicking to me as I scrolled through his phone, connected via Bluetooth, the screen glowing faintly in the dark cab. I found a classic rock playlist, Springsteen, Dylan, a little Fleetwood Mac, and hit play. The opening chords of Born to Run filling the cab, the guitar riff cutting through the tension like a burst of energy. Good choice, he said, his smile widening, his fingers tapping the steering wheel in time with the beat. You're stealing my playlist now. I laughed, the music loosening the knot in my chest, the rhythm matching the pulse in my veins. Borrowing, not stealing. You've got good taste, I'll give you that. We talked as the truck wound through the city, the route growing longer, the streets quieter, the light softer, as we passed through neighborhoods I didn't recognize. Old houses with glowing porch lights and lawns dotted with fallen leaves. He told me about his college days at a state school, how he'd stumbled into graphic design after bombing an engineering exam. A story he told with a self-deprecating laugh that made me smile, his hands gesturing animatedly as he described the professor, who'd told him he was better suited to drawing pretty pictures. I shared stories of my small-town childhood, the county fair with its sticky cotton candy rickety Ferris wheels, and the time I'd won a stuffed bear at a ring toss only to lose it in a corn maze. We laughed about our worst dates, mine with a guy who spent an entire dinner talking about his ex, leaving me to eat my pasta in silence. His with a girl who hated rock music, a deal breaker he swore by with a grin that made my heart skip. As we talked, I noticed the truck's visor flapping loose, swinging with every turn, casting shadows across the dashboard and threatening to block his view. Your visor's about to make a break for it, I said, pointing to it, forcing a playful tone to break the growing tension. Want me to fix it? I'm no mechanic, but I can handle a screwdriver. He chuckled, pulling over to the side of a quiet street lined with maples, the truck idling softly, the headlights cutting through the dark. You're volunteering for repairs now? All right, let's see what you've got. He reached into the glove compartment, pulling out a small screwdriver, and handed it to me. Our fingers brushing again, the touch sending a shiver through me, warm and electric. I climbed onto the seat, kneeling to reach the visor, my movements clumsy but determined, hyper-aware of his gaze as he watched, his arm resting on the back of the seat, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. I tightened the screw, the visor now steady, and sat back, grinning, my hair falling into my face. There, your truck's safe now. He laughed, his eyes warm, locking onto mine, the streetlight catching the hazel in them. You're hired. What's next? Tuning an engine? I grinned, settling back, our shoulders closer now, the cab feeling smaller, warmer, the music shifting to a slower Dylan track, the lyrics soft and haunting, wrapping us in their rhythm. Don't tempt me. I'd probably set it on fire. He chuckled, his voice low, his gaze softening. "Your trouble, Emma," he said, teasing but soft, like he meant it in a way that wasn't entirely playful. "Trouble's not always a bad thing," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. The words slipping out before I could stop them, the air thickening between us, the music's rhythm matching my pulse. We drove on, the city lights giving way to darker streets, the route looping through neighborhoods with quiet parks and old churches, the truck moving slowly like he was stalling, and I didn't mind. The center console was cluttered with more than just sketches, a few receipts, a pack of gum, a keychain with a tiny plastic guitar, and I noticed it was starting to spill over, the receipts crinkling under my elbow. "Your console's a mess," I said, forcing a playful tone to keep things light. "Want help tidying it? I owe you for the ride." He raised an eyebrow, his smile widening as he glanced at the clutter. "You're just full of projects tonight. Go for it, but don't judge my chaos." I laughed, reaching for the receipts, sorting them into a neat stack, our hands brushing as he handed me the gum to tuck away. Each touch sent a spark through me, and we talked as we worked, the conversation flowing effortlessly, his love for design, how he'd once spent all night tweaking a logo for a client who changed their mind at the last minute. My psych classes, how I was fascinated by why people made the choices they did, like why someone might take the long way home instead of the direct route. We laughed about the upstairs neighbor who vacuumed at midnight, the sound echoing through our building's thin ceilings, and he teased me about my barista skills, claiming I probably made better coffee than he did, even with his fancy espresso machine at home. "You're one to talk," I said, holding up a crumpled receipt from a diner. "This is from 3 months ago. You ever throw anything away?" He chuckled, taking it from me, his fingers grazing mine, lingering just a moment too long, the touch warm against my skin. "Only the stuff I don't need. Keeps life interesting." I laughed, but the air between us shifted. The silence filled with the soft strum of the music and the hum of the engine, the city outside fading into a blur. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us moved. The space between us charged with something unspoken, a pull I couldn't ignore, but knew I shouldn't chase. I focused on the console, tucking the keychain into a side pocket, but my fingers lingered near his hand, the warmth of his presence making my heart race. We finished tidying the console, looking almost respectable, and settled back. The music now a soft Fleetwood Mac track, Stevie Nicks' voice weaving through the cab. We talked about our dreams, mine to become a psychologist, to understand why people did what they did, to help them untangle their choices. His to start his own design studio to create something that was entirely his, free from clients' whims. We shared fears to mine of failing my classes, of not being enough in a world that demanded so much. His of getting lost in the grind, of forgetting what he was chasing, of waking up one day and realizing he'd missed something important. The words came easily, the late hour and the quiet cab loosening our guards, and the spark between us grew, humming beneath every word, every glance, every accidental brush of our hands as we adjusted the radio or passed the water bottle back and forth. The truck rolled through another quiet neighborhood, the houses dark, the streets lined with trees shedding their leaves in the wind. We talked about our favorite books. Mine were psychological thrillers that kept me up late, flipping pages under my covers. His were biographies of musicians like Springsteen and Dylan, stories of people who chased their dreams against the odds. I told him about my psych paper on cognitive biases, how I was fascinated by why people clung to certain beliefs, like why someone might choose a longer route when a shorter one was available. He shared how he'd once designed a poster for a local band only to have them reject it for being too bold, a story that made us both laugh until my sides ached, the music fading into the background as our voices filled the cab. Eventually, we turned onto my street, the familiar brick building looming ahead, its windows dark except for a few late-night lights flickering like fireflies. He pulled into a spot outside, the engine idling softly, the headlights cutting through the dark. I glanced at my phone. 11:45 p.m. The drive had taken over an hour, weaving through the city in a lazy loop, and neither of us had minded. The conversation too easy, the air too warm. "We're here," I said, my voice reluctant, my heart sinking at the thought of leaving the cocoon of the cab, the music, his presence. He nodded, his eyes lingering on me, warm and searching, like he wasn't ready for the night to end either. "Yeah, guess we took the scenic route." I laughed, my cheeks warming under his gaze, the music now a soft hum in the background. "Guess we did. Didn't know you were such a tour guide." He grinned, leaning across the seat, his arm brushing mine as he turned down the radio, the touch sending a shiver through me. "Anytime, Emma. You're kind of amazing." My heart raced and I grabbed my backpack, my fingers brushing his arm as I turned to open the door, the touch lingering, electric, like a spark that refused to fade. "Thanks for the ride, Ethan," I said, my voice soft, my eyes meeting his one last time. "You're not so bad yourself." I stepped out, the cold air a shock against my flushed skin, the wind tugging at my hair as I closed the door. I paused on the sidewalk, turning back to see him watching me, his smile steady, his eyes catching the streetlights glow. "Next time, I'll pick the playlist," I called, forcing a playful tone to lighten the moment. "Maybe throw in some rom-com vibes." He laughed, his voice carrying through the open window. "Deal. See you around, Emma." As I walked to my building, the truck's engine rumbling as he pulled away, my heart pounded against my ribs. The memory of his smile, his voice, the warmth of the cab lingering, a spark we both felt, one we shouldn't chase but couldn't quite forget. Thanks for listening to my confession, guys. I hope you felt that spark as much as I did. If you loved this story, please like and subscribe for more.